Tonight, construction workers take over the Westgate Bridge. Drivers caught in the chaos. Riot police sent in to barricade Parliament in a day of fury over a COVID shutdown. News crews attacked live on air. More than $2 billion wiped away in the fallout. A desperate plea for Melbourne's north.
Your life does very much depend on it.
A vaccine boost for children under 12. And two footy legends vying to hand out footy's ultimate prize.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. Melbourne has faced a day of fury with construction workers taking over the Westgate Bridge and shutting down city streets in a backlash against the shutdown of the building industry. Hundreds blocked the bridge for 2 hours, leaving drivers caught in the chaos with nowhere to go.
Victoria's construction industry shut down and fighting back. Hundreds of furious tradies, joined by hardcore anti-lockdown troublemakers, used extreme tactics to storm the Westgate Freeway just after 2 p.m. They blocked lanes in both directions, forcing traffic back for kilometres.
Get all eyes on Melbourne.
Some staged a dangerous sit-in, others attacked motorists, all with little to no resistance from police.
There are cops up ahead, but it looks like it's going to escort us through.
A handful took joyrides, dozens acted as cargo on empty trucks' trays. The dangerous stunt forcing Vic roads to close on-ramps during the busy afternoon peak. Witnesses say many were drunk, hurling abuse to anyone within earshot. Police managed to arrest a few, but most of the mob was free to skylark as the rally inched across the Westgate Bridge, a construction landmark in our city.
Oh, look at this for a shot. Look at that.
The group is taking aim at the state government after a late-night snap decision to shut all Victorian construction sites for at least 2 weeks. Health bosses say they were left with no choice after continuous COVID breaches on work sites.
We've seen to a kind of stop to have a bit of a break. You know, we've earned this break. We've been going all day.
The raging tradies and others targeted drivers stuck in gridlock and media covering their protest. But at this stage, traffic's not moving out of the traffic. There's no traffic coming into the city. And Mike, I think we'd better. Almost 2 hours after workers first stopped traffic, hundreds of police arrived. The highly trained tactical police moving into this situation. But they were powerless to stop the masses as they marched back into the city in a frightening game of cat and mouse with the police. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
As we saw, police and news crews came under attack as protesters marched through the CBD. At one point, riot squad officers were sent in to barricade Parliament.
They say they built this city. Today they brought it to a standstill. First at 10 a.m. outside the CFMEU's Elizabeth Street headquarters, the site of yesterday's anarchy. But this time police reacted with force. They outnumbered workers with the riot squad and mounted branch flanking tradies from every angle.
Police public order warning. You have previously been directed to leave. Leave now or force may be used.
The warning did little but incite an angry mob seething about a vaccine ultimatum for all construction workers.
We have to take measures that change the behaviours across the industry.
Their march snaked from Elizabeth Street to Parliament House. In a volatile game of catch me if you can with police.
Free Victoria! Free Victoria!
Officers were pelted with bottles. Police vehicles attacked.
They're throwing shit at the coppers, look at that! Look at that, they're throwing shit at the coppers! Get him! Whoa! 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 What the hell, man? What?
The media also in the firing line.
Hey!
Fake news! Fake news media! Shame on you! Shame!
Fake news, you piece of shit!
It was mayhem on the streets of Melbourne.
The crowd is certainly getting bigger and they're very passionate. I've just been struck in the back of a head by a can.
Missiles and flares in a desperate attempt to grab the attention of the Premier.
We're upset, we're hurt, mate. We're hurt, we're here, we speak for everyone that doesn't have the courage to stand up and be here today.
I'm double vaxxed. I just don't like that everyone's being pressured into it.
But the Andrews government isn't budging from its vaccine mandate, renewing an ultimatum to the construction industry. Step up or stay shut.
I think is nothing short of a public outrage. And quite frankly, the people who conducted themselves in this way, I think are so far removed from the values of most Victorians.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
And the protest is still lingering tonight. Cassie Zervos is at the CFMEU headquarters, and Cassie, still a big police contingent there.
Well, Mitch, as we go to air tonight, there is a major police operation underway, and that is because some protesters returned to the CFMEU headquarters late this afternoon. This time, they were outnumbered by riot squad police and the mounted branch. They moved in using batons and capsicum spray to try and control the crowd. Some were seen lying in the middle of Elizabeth and Victoria Street in demonstration. Motorists were forced to drive around them. Police have told me they are determined to get every single activist off our streets tonight, but the demonstrators say they will be back tomorrow. Mitch.
Cassie Zervos, thank you. And we've just heard from the Chief Commissioner on this protest. Cameron Bowe is at the Westgate with details. And Cameron, there were some arrests in this mayhem.
Mitch, the Chief Commissioner says that the focus of the police response today was on public safety. He says that they've made 44 arrests so far. He also says that they have made attempts to contain the mob.
Can I say that any police force would have been challenged by the spontaneity and the sheer massive numbers that we saw involved with this group?
The Chief Commissioner has also confirmed that riot police have used their weapons, which fire pepper balls and stinger grenades, and we certainly witnessed that here today during the occupation of the Westgate, Mitch.
Cameron Bowe beside the freeway, thank you. And the Premier has just released a statement. Chanel Vella joins us now. And Chanel, it's the first time today we've heard from Daniel Andrews.
Well, the Premier wasn't at this morning's press conference and we were told he was not available today, but he was working behind the scenes. But just minutes ago, he released a statement saying there is no excuse for the terrible behaviour we have seen in our city over the last 2 days. Acts of violence and disruption won't result in one less case of COVID. And as for when we will see the Premier, at this stage, it is unclear if he will hold a press conference tomorrow. Mitch.
Chanel Vella, thank you. The 2-week shutdown will cost the construction industry $2 billion, but health authorities say there was no choice. They claim the industry was a key factor in the spread of COVID, especially in the city's north and west.
Given just hours' notice to shut down their sites, builders across Victoria were sent scrambling.
As you can tell, you know, we've got nobody here today. All we're doing here is making our sites safe and secure for the next 2 weeks.
Even though many say they've been following every rule.
Certainly came as a bit of a shock to everybody in the industry. Look, we feel that the vast majority of industry people have been doing the right thing. So it was quite tough.
The state government says shutting down the entire industry has been a live issue for weeks and wasn't a reaction to protests.
Wearing a mask, some people just don't see how critical it is. But in the same way that you don't wear a hard hat on your elbow, you wear it on your head. Masks on chins were not doing the job in construction and transmission was occurring. It does not stop at a tea room.
Checks across the state revealed around 50% of work sites failed to comply with COVID rules. There are now 337 cases linked to construction across 154 sites.
The construction industry is effectively amplifying and spreading the virus into communities, particularly in the north and the west of Melbourne, but also the southeast.
The rules for tradies are now set in stone. Get the jab before returning to work on October 5 or don't come back.
And the only reason most of us are doing this is because we have to, for us to go to work. I'm doing it against my will. It's not a choice. We're being forced to do it.
I think it's great. I think it should be pushed and we should be moving forward with it. I think it's time. I mean, what can you do, mate? You got to do it. Keeps you in a job.
The Property Council says the shutdown will cost much more than jobs.
We employ over 300,000 Victorians, and this shutdown's going to cost the industry in wages and lost productivity over $1 billion a week. You know, there's going to be a lot of people at home.
While the construction industry has been the loudest, other industries who've been shut down partially throughout the pandemic or completely have been watching in despair.
Victoria is the second largest restaurant, cafe and catering market in Australia, nearly 30% of a $35 billion industry, and nearly $10 billion, so $3 billion in Victoria has been wiped off of the ledgers of those businesses, and they are desperate to get reopened much faster than the roadmap calls for.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
And there has been a desperate appeal as Melbourne's north continues to battle a spike in case numbers. Nick McCallum is at the Royal Melbourne Hospital this evening. And Nick, it's just opened another COVID ward to deal with the rising case numbers.
Peter, 75% of Victorians hospitalised with COVID are here at the Royal Melbourne. And as you say, a fourth specialised COVID ward has just been opened. It is operating right now. This hospital caters for a large area of the northern suburbs. In its catchment currently, 1,800 people with the virus. So they're expecting a big surge in hospitalisations over the next week or so. This impassioned plea from the Chief Health Officer for all, particularly in Melbourne's north, to get vaccinated.
Please treat it as a matter of urgency. Prioritise it like your life depends upon it, because your life does very much depend on it.
603 new cases statewide, the biggest daily rise in 13 months. Now 6,000 active cases in Victoria. One woman in her 70s from Melbourne's north died with COVID. 241 people are in hospital, an increase of 36 in the past 24 hours. 60 are in ICU, 39 on ventilators.
3 out of 241 people in hospital fully vaccinated. All of the rest not completely vaccinated.
242 or 40% of today's new cases are in the city of Hume in Melbourne's north. Most alarmingly, 15 at the Meadow Heights Aged Care Facility, 11 staff and 4 residents. But the local vaccination response is pleasing.
In Hume, first dose coverage has grown 9.5% in just a week to now be at 64.5% coverage.
And Pfizer today reported new data showing its vaccine is safe and effective for children aged 5 to 11. Doses are a third of the amount of those for adults. The company will now apply for emergency authorisation for use in children as young as 5 in the United States. They claim huge demand.
We had more people volunteering quickly than we could accommodate in the trial. So there's pent-up demand for parents to be able to have their children return to a normal life.
It's welcome news. I think that, you know, the people that I trust to analyse the data is our own TGA, our own Australian regulator, and of course they will be looking at that sort of data very closely before we make any decisions about under 12s.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Police are searching for victims of two alleged rapists in Melbourne's West after they discovered video footage in Melton. 39-year-old Reece Scarry from Harkness and 46-year-old Lee Lincoln from Melton faced court on rape and sexual assault charges. Detectives believe the video footage indicates there were more attacks and more victims. The AFL Premiership Cup has landed in the hands of two of the game's greats, with Gary Lyon and Chris Grant both hoping to present the trophy to their respective clubs. It's particularly emotional for Gary as he remembers a legendary teammate.
Two club legends, each with a hand on football's ultimate prize.
It's such an amazing and surreal experience to have the colours of your club involved in Grand Final Day.
On Grand Final Day, only one will have the honour of presenting the cup to the winning captain and coach. For Lyon, it's sure to be emotional, as support for the Demons stretches beyond Australian shores. Jim Stein's headstone sits in the Dublin Hills, local fans placing a scarf there in a touching tribute.
It's a sombre reality of some of the tragic history of our footy club.
Stein's presidency instrumental in the Demons' drought-breaking tilt. Lyon brought Stein's back to unify and reinvigorate the club.
He's in he's in my thoughts. He'd be in all of our thoughts this week particularly. He's got a massive following back in Ireland, of course, so the Melbourne support back there will be immense.
Lyon predicting it's Melbourne's best chance at a premiership in his lifetime.
Yep, no doubt.
Gary and I will walk the cup out together before the game. Might have trouble prizing both of our hands off it.
The AFL announced the umpires for Saturday's clash. Jacob Mollison umpiring his first grand final. Matt Stevick his 9th in 10 years, putting his incident with Toby Green behind him.
Our job is to be as professional as we possibly can be, both on and off the field. We understand our place in the game.
And at Perth's Aquarium, it was the Octopus's turn to tip the winner.
Looks like the Octopus is on the Demons bandwagon. Tom Brown joins us from Perth. Tom, preparations are ramping up there.
Mitch, they're reaching fever pitch. Optus Stadium, a sound cauldron. Over my shoulder, they're conducting sound checks on the grand final entertainment. Ben Cousins will feature on a panel show over here in Perth tonight. Gil McLaughlin will speak in the morning at a Major 7 AFL breakfast. But it's all about the footy in tomorrow. Melbourne have their crucial main session for the week. On Friday, in an AFL first, both teams in front of 25,000 plus fans, hard to believe here at Optus, will have their final captain's runs on the ground at Optus in an AFL first. It's an incredible week here in Perth, Mitch.
Good on you, Tom Brown in Perth, thank you. The Brownlow medal is in desperate need of an overhaul. Tim Watson, that's the view of one former AFL coach.
Mitch, 7 News can reveal a 3-point plan that would revolutionise footy's highest honour. We'll have more on that shortly. Plus, the Dogs let their hair down on a day off in Perth as a D's excitement machine reveals his grand final inspiration. And Mitch, a highly rated Blues midfielder, wants out of Carlton. More on that later in sport.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Tim. Trucking bosses are facing massive fines of up to $3 million over the freeway tragedy that killed 4 police officers. Details are next on 7 News. Also, Australia facing new fallout over its historic submarine deal. The remarkable therapy helping parents see signs of autism. And later, the energy game changer cutting power bills. And a special Bulldogs fans' grand final tribute to the Bont. 18 months after the Eastern Freeway tragedy, new charges have been laid. Sarah Jones is at police headquarters this evening, and Sarah, 3 trucking company employees are facing massive fines.
Mitch, Operation Paragon, a joint operation between Victoria Police and the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, has laid charges over the crash that killed 4 police officers last year. They've charged a transport company from New South Wales, its owner, National Operations Manager and State Manager. The maximum penalties are up to $300,000 or 5 years jail for each man. The company is facing a $3 million fine if convicted. The 3 men charged will face a New South Wales court next week. Mitch.
Sarah Jones at police headquarters, thank you. Scott Morrison is in the US and in damage control over the growing fallout from Australia's nuclear submarine deal. The European Union is now weighing into the row as the PM prepares to meet Joe Biden.
Stepping into a diplomatic storm. Scott Morrison arrives in New York City.
I'm very pleased to be here in the United States.
His mission, the 3 Cs, COVID, climate and China. But the blow-up with France over the Axe submarine deal threatens to torpedo his plans.
Shouldn't there have been more diplomatic groundwork done before this announcement was made?
It would be naive to think that a decision of this nature was not going to cause disappointment.
He says he gave France plenty of notice. But now Europe is angry.
One of our member states has been treated in a way that is not acceptable. So we want to know what happened and why.
Foreign Minister Maurice Payne's French counterpart cancelling their meeting as European leaders met separately discussing France's threat to scuttle Australia's free trade talks with the EU.
I can only really, I suppose, quote the Foreign Affairs Chief from the European Commission, who said that you don't mix apples and pears.
The French say the new AUKUS partners are poking the bear in Beijing.
The Indo-Pacific strategy signifies a direction that we consider to be a very confrontational direction toward China.
Indonesia uneasy. Scott Morrison speaking to President Joko Widodo from the plane.
We had a very warm conversation. I was able to reassure him particularly about the issues on non-proliferation.
Scott Morrison's meeting privately here in New York tonight with News Corp Chief Executive Robert Thompson and meets tomorrow with US President Joe Biden as the subs row fallout now threatens other alliances. The White House says Mr Biden will defend Scott Morrison in an online meeting with France's Emmanuel Macron tonight. Australia is not invited. In New York, Mark Riley, 7 News.
A new therapy is delivering big results in dealing with autism in children. It can crack the unique communication code of individual toddlers in a breakthrough researchers describe as their holy grail.
Building blocks his way. Lincoln has unlocked a piece of the autism puzzle even before he was old enough for doctors to know if he's on the spectrum.
He didn't cry at all.
From birth to his first months.
Lincoln would happily look everywhere but my face.
His mum knew something was different.
I guess my mother's gut instinct was, okay, I know there's something not quite the same.
She signed up to a world-first trial of babies 9 to 14 months, providing preemptive intervention before most neuroconnections develop. Video playback pinpointed how each child and parent learns best.
To identify those strengths, use them as the building block for future development.
When you stop and noticing, someone doesn't have to be looking at you to show that they want to engage with you.
By the time participants turned 3, the rate of clinical diagnosis was reduced by almost 2/3, reducing sensory issues, repetitive behaviour and communication barriers before they formed. This is more proof it doesn't need to be debilitating and definitely doesn't define a child's life.
Whoa!
Jessica Page, 7 News.
Jane Bunn joins us now. And Jane, it was a very chilly day, but some lucky Victorians close to Melbourne saw snow.
Rich, it is a silver or white lining on an otherwise grey day. The hills around Melbourne were turned white, covering the vines in Trentham near Daylesford and Ballarat, while the main street of Marysville looked like a postcard from overseas. And driving up Mount Donabuang near Warburton needed the snow chains. Snow settled just below 500 metres, but there was lots of it up in the Alps. Those lucky enough to go skiing have a great few days ahead. For the rest of Melbourne, the precipitation was clear. It was rain, with lots of showers passing through this morning. That cleared out to a generally dry but cloudy afternoon, and we only peaked at a top of 13. Now, we are not done. There is more wet weather out there tonight, but there's warmer weather ahead. The full details are after sport, Mitch.
Thanks, Jane. See you then. There's a new insight into Melbourne's DFO plane crash. Next, why a pilot shouldn't have been at the controls for the tragic flight. Also, community sporting clubs fighting for survival. 100 homes swallowed by a river of lava. And a rare motoring classic stolen. New details have emerged about a fatal Essendon plane crash and why the pilot should not have been flying that day. 5 people died seconds after takeoff when the plane plummeted into a shopping centre.
It was Melbourne's worst aviation disaster in 30 years, and now a coronial inquest is seeking to work out why it happened. 5 people were killed when a light plane crashed into the Essendon DFO just 10 seconds after takeoff. Experienced pilot Max Quatermain died, along with 4 American tourists. Flight investigators found the plane's rudder was in the wrong position. The inquiry is working out whether it was already like that before takeoff and wasn't picked up during pre-flight checks, or if there was pilot error during takeoff. Mr Quatermain had been involved in another mid-air scare in 2015 when he came too close to another plane at Mount Hotham. The court heard he then failed a pilot test carried out by CASA, grabbing the wrong instrument during landing. He'd also been issued with 9 non-compliance notices a year before the crash, but his licence was still active. Lawyer Peter Lithgow asked a CASA inspector whether Mr Quatermain was lawfully allowed to pilot that ill-fated flight. No, he responded, because he did not have the flight check system in place for that aircraft. The inquest continues. Christy Cooper, 7 News.
Grassroots sporting clubs are struggling to survive after 2 years of little competition because of COVID. New research reveals the fight that's ahead of the suburban clubs to stay afloat and keep children playing.
$36,000 out of pocket just so their juniors could play.
Over $36,000, and we just know how important it is to keep our junior players engaged at a local footy club.
Boronia Hawks are trying to get through 2 years of community sport shutdown, and they're not alone. New research showing clubs are bleeding cash and people. Smaller clubs have lost an average $11,000, the larger ones around $7,000 more. 9,000 clubs say they're worried about going under. Nearly half report less players year on year, and 42% say they've lost much needed volunteers.
If these clubs go under, we're going to lose a huge amount in our communities.
Strathmore is another club struggling to retain junior members and volunteers.
Vibes were great for the first 2 or 3 months, and then it just went from a huge high to a huge low. It was the heartbreaking part, I think.
The issue is being felt right across the country, but Victorian clubs are being hit the hardest. And with community sport banned until we reach 70% vaccinated, the full impact of lockdowns is yet to be seen.
This crisis isn't over for community sport, and it's going to have a long lead time.
I think the majority will survive at least another year or 2, but we have to put things in position for the next 5 to 10 years, not next year.
Georgia Commons Solly, 7 News.
Prince Andrew has now officially been served with a sex assault lawsuit. Lawyers for his accusers say the paperwork was received by the Duke's US legal team and they have the FedEx receipt to prove it. Prince Andrew disputed claims he'd been served more than a week ago. Virginia Giuffre is seeking damages, claiming she was forced to have sex with Andrew as a 17-year-old. By law, the Duke has 21 days to respond. In the same 24 hours, Prince Andrew became a grandfather again. Daughter Princess Beatrice announcing the birth of her first child, a so far unnamed baby girl with husband Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi. Royal insiders say Prince Andrew hasn't visited yet. He's still holed up in Balmoral. The baby is the 12th great-grandchild for the Queen. And astonishing pictures are emerging of homes being swallowed by lava. Burning streams surged through villages on the Spanish Canary Islands. Some 100 homes have been destroyed so far in the area's first volcanic eruption in 50 years. Thousands of homes have been evacuated, but so far no one has died. 3 thieves are on the run tonight after stealing a classic Holden Monaro worth $200,000. The robbers damaged the vintage car in the getaway that was all caught on camera.
It was anything but a subtle getaway.
You idiot.
A stolen Monaro snakes its way along a road in Adelaide's northern suburbs. Earlier yesterday morning, it was stolen from this home. The trio of thieves scaled a side fence, pinching the 1968 classic from the garage in broad daylight, before fleeing in a RAV4, the Monaro close behind.
To be honest, it makes my blood boil. You put all your money, your heart, soul in a car, and some thieves come along and take it.
The suspects making a mess of their getaway, ploughing into several trees and a concrete letterbox, ripping it from the ground. The car, worth around $200,000, left badly damaged.
Low life, mate. Yeah, anyone pinches other people's property is low life.
The thieves were spotted again just around the corner. Then, while stopped at a busy intersection, one culprit was seen switching from the Monaro to the RAV4 before the trio was captured on CCTV, seemingly admiring their haul.
I hope they get these guys and get the car back for them.
The stolen Monaro wasn't all the thieves fled with. They took off with a number of expensive items, including jewellery.
Detectives spoke with the victim and his family this morning, but so far there's been no sign of the missing Monaro. Tim Yateman, 7 News.
Solar power is helping some households save thousands of dollars. Next, the energy game changer, how to make money from your energy supply. Also, a high flyer pays a high price for a luxury car burnout. And a musical tribute for the Bont from the daughter of a Bulldogs great. A hire car businessman has refused to reveal who was driving a Ferrari that ran a red light and did burnouts in Sydney in May. Daniel Souris could be fined more than $2,000 after he pleaded guilty. The case returns to court for sentencing in November. Solar power technology is helping save many Australians thousands of dollars every year on energy bills. In some cases, they're even making a profit, all part of a virtual power plant system generated from the comfort of your own home.
Abandoning the battle against ever-rising energy bills, some have seen the light and are living off the grid.
With the solar and battery system, I've achieved 97% self-sufficiency, which I think is great.
Paying nothing per month, Pascal saves thousands a year, and it's a growing trend. Between 2.6 million and 3 million Australian households have solar panels installed. Within a decade, another 3 million will come online, the average household saving over $200 a month. Excess power even stored and sold back to the grid at a premium.
We're typically paying them about $85 to $90 a month, as opposed to them paying us for energy.
But as solar becomes more popular, the network is under strain. It's because our old poles and wires were designed to get energy to your home, not the other way. Recent changes to solar rules mean some households may have to pay power export fees.
Now, an enormous part of generation is actually coming from our homes into the grid. So it's really important that, in my opinion, we get to 100% renewables grid.
The energy regulator is currently developing pricing guidelines and is set to report back later this month. Serena Andaloro, 7 News.
When it comes to football, everyone shows their colours in a different way. For Bulldogs great Brad Johnson and his daughter Ella, it's in a song for the Bont. Laura Spurway has the story.
She's got the Bulldogs in her blood, and now Ella Johnson is taking her passion to a new level.
He's been my favourite player since he got to the club, really. So Dad was always number one, but then, as soon as Bont came around, definitely switched over.
Dad is club legend Brad Johnson, who convinced Ella to combine her loves of music and the Bont.
He just said, wouldn't it be great if Marcus Bontempelli had a song about him? Dad and I kind of jotted some words down, and then we sent that over to 10 High Fly, and they put all the instrumentals and the lyrics all together.
The song The Bont has been heard by the man himself.
I love that she's, chasing her passion. She loves to sing. She's got a great voice. I'm hoping it goes, well for her sake.
It was very overwhelming. It was very exciting. I didn't really know how to feel knowing that he's heard this song that's about him. Baby, you
Until she can meet her hero in the flesh, Ella's recorded this performance for Grand Final Week. and is spending her time at a local food producer in Geelong making treats for the big day. Laura Spurway, 7 News.
Good luck to you, Ella. Sports next with Tim Watson. And Tim, a talented Carlton midfielder wants out of Princes Park.
He does, Mitch. We'll get the latest next as footy's silly season ramps up. Plus the Dogs sharpen up ahead of Saturday's big game. Also, a famous footy name gets ready to write his own grand final chapter. The revolutionary plan to overhaul the Brownlow medal, and a new star emerges as the Aussies make a statement to start the summer. Welcome back. Melbourne's Cozzy Pickett doesn't have far to look for some grand final inspiration. Uncle Byron helped end Brisbane's dynasty back in 2004. The D's Livewire is hoping to inspire the next generation on the biggest stage of all.
He's quickly becoming one of the AFL's most exciting players. Cozzy Pickett gets his chance to light up footy's biggest stage of all this Saturday.
Growing up, I've seen a lot of Indigenous superstars just playing in grand finals and winning, and I thought, I just want to be exactly like them.
The Pickett family tree isn't a stranger to grand final success. Uncle Byron made the 2004 grand final his own.
Stalking dangerously!
I've always dreamt of it. Obviously, I've seen Uncle Byron playing in grand final. It's pretty inspiring, not to myself, obviously, but other Indigenous kids. Hopefully we can get the win, and I just want to play footy and just inspire a lot of other younger kids.
Jake Lever, the only Melbourne player with first-hand grand final experience, although he's hoping a happier ending this Saturday than for the Crows in 2017.
If you look at 2017, I think Adelaide was probably the favourites going in, and you almost start to imagine what it's like.
Small forward Charlie Spargo shook off an injured ankle this morning. The D's to have an open training session on Friday on the eve of the grand final. The Bulldogs, meantime, enjoyed the day off in Fremantle. We spotted Adam Treloar having a haircut, timely, up on the balcony. Tom Liberatore getting a coffee in trendy Fremantle. Chris Grant giving an update on what their plans were for the day off.
I think they've just taken it upon themselves that this is game weekend, and what we would normally do in a game week, what would you do? And they've reflected on that and just sort of carrying it out the same way. So no curfew as such, but I haven't seen too many guys coming in very late each night.
Tim, an update on Carlton's coaching search tonight. They won't go after Chris Scott. Won't again sound out Ross Lyon. It's down to Michael Voss and Adam Kingsley. Brian Cook, who's the kingmaker now in all this, will try to speak to both of them this week. Dustin Martin, a big fan of Kingsley's. He went to his exit interview, I'm told, Dusty, and said, I want Kingsley back in Richmond as their midfield coach next season. He's a big fan of Kingsley's tactical nous. And just finally on some trade news tonight, Sam Petrevski-Seton set to leave Carlton, nominating West Coast as his club of choice. And Nathan Kruger has surprised the forward at Geelong, keen to get to Collingwood. Tim, it's heating up. All the trade news.
It is. Thanks, Tom. The Brownlow medal is in desperate need of an overhaul, according to one former AFL coach. Grant Thomas says the game's highest individual honour needs fixing, and he's got a plan that every key forward and defender can get behind.
It's footy's most prestigious award, but former St Kilda coach Grant Thomas insists it's in desperate need of change.
When 45 or 48 of the top 50-odd players in the Brownlow are all midfielders, I just think we've got something fundamentally wrong.
Not since the early 90s has a non-midfielder won the game's highest individual honour. This year's list a case in point. Max Gawn was the only one inside the top 30 at the Brownlow with 16 votes. Adelaide's Taylor Walker was the highest polling forward with 9 votes. Geelong's Tom Stewart the top defender with 8. Melbourne's All-Australian duo of Jake Lever and Stephen May managed 6 votes between them.
Is that a reflection of his performance and contribution this year? Absolutely not. The weighting is just too heavily balanced towards who gets the most possessions on the ground, and the midfielders have got carte blanche in that regard.
Grant's solution? Remove the umpires from the voting process. Appoint a separate panel of experts to vote, including former players, coaches and umpires, and implement a criteria for voting. One not as heavily based on possessions and more on the overall influence on the game.
I don't see a reflection of the performances of our forwards and defenders and the contribution they make in today's game.
Laura Spurway, 7 News.
Australia has unearthed a new speed demon in a dominant start to the international summer. A wayward Elise Perry struggled to find any rhythm with the new ball, but Darcy Brown was on target at the other end.
It's a top edge and gone! 4 wickets for Brown.
It's pretty surreal. I still feel like I'm sort of watching the telly kind of, but like live. It's really weird.
The 18-year-old is the youngest Aussie ever, male or female, to take 4 wickets in an ODI. In reply, Alyssa Healy made light work of the 226-run target with 77. Rachel Haynes also finished with a half-century as the Aussie claimed a 9-wicket win. It was a less than ideal restart to the IPL for Glenn Maxwell.
Oh, God! There's the frustration. Maxwell committed to the shot and takes leg stump out of the ground.
Maxwell was bowled for 10 superstar teammates. Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers didn't fare any better as Royal Challengers Bangalore was smashed by 9 wickets. Crowds have been ruled out for this year's Cox Plate. The early favourite for the race, Zaki, has arrived in Melbourne with star jockey Craig Williams getting an early look for the first time this morning.
He's got a little bit to come on in looks in his coat. I've also gone through his replays, and for a horse that's won twice at Epsom, I think Sandown is the least of his worry.
Williams will ride Zaki in Saturday's Group 1 $1 million Underwood Stakes at Sandown. And Mitch, that's sport.
Tom Brown all over the social notes in Perth, isn't he? We've got coffees and haircuts.
I thought he might line up for a haircut himself.
Yeah, he might need one. You never know. Thank you very much, Tim. Jane is next with the forecast. And Jane, is it warming up soon?
Well, Mitch, Thursday should be the nicest day of the week. We'll rise back up over 20. The full details are next.
Hello, Michael Usher here. Tonight on the latest from 7 News, we're live with more on those violent and disruptive protests rolling through Melbourne, with demonstrations expected to escalate. And we'll take you live to New York as the PM meets with President Joe Biden. Hope you can join me for the latest First Edition, 7 Plus at 8 p.m, and the latest on 7, 10:10.
Hello again. After lots of showers this morning, the afternoon was generally dry but grey. It is cold. We began on 6 and only reached a top of 13. Tonight there is more wet weather on the way. You can see it rolling through on the camera there, quite wet under there, and the radar shows just how much of that we are seeing. It's coming up from the south and spreading right through these eastern districts here. Snow fell to low levels overnight, rising back up to the Alps this morning. Showers are streaming in across the south while cloud extends into parts of the north. It was 3 degrees in Ballarat late yesterday afternoon. Still cold out there today, but not quite as extreme. The system that brought our blast of wintry weather is now out to our northeast as a cold front and trough head out over the Tasman Sea. There's one more surge tonight from that trough well down to the south. Then tomorrow the next high slowly comes in. So the drizzly rain and showers are returning to the southwest and Melbourne tonight. They don't reach the north of the state and that clears out during the morning tomorrow. We'll then take a generally dry break under that high and that lasts until Friday. That is our next cold front, followed by a trough on Saturday. Nowhere near as cold as the last one, but we'll see wet weather on both days, mainly in the south on Saturday. Around the nation tomorrow, it is generally dry. Sunny and 24 for Brisbane, sunny and 27 in Perth. Sydney has a mix of sunshine and cloud. The winds are lighter than today, but the surf is still rough. Canberra has a frosty start, -1. Hobart, lots of sunshine, it's rising to 20. Adelaide, mostly cloudy with a bit of drizzle there in the morning. Tomorrow we have local frost and fog in the northeast. It is drizzly on and south of the ranges. That clears out during the afternoon. But cloud affects most of the state. That is all of this white in through here. But temperatures do rise a little. Closer in overnight and in the morning there are drizzly showers mainly over these eastern suburbs while the west does look generally dry. In the afternoon we are all dry but the cloud does linger right through the day. Despite this, temperatures are rising. The city is heading up to 17 degrees. There may be some drizzle at first ahead of a grey but dry day. To the 8-day outlook. Thursday looks to be the pick of the week. We're heading up to a top of 21. There is a mix of sunshine and cloud. Do not take the umbrella. It is completely dry on Thursday. On Friday, showers return during the morning. It's 18 and then turning cold for the afternoon. Showers continue all afternoon and into the evening, and there's lots more of them on Saturday. A top of about 14. We're looking at snow up in the Alps. That dries up on Saturday night. 15 for Sunday, but the sunny breaks will be feeling quite nice. Then next week, temperatures rise. It could be our first taste of a bit of spring-like weather. There's even the chance of some thunderstorms. So it is drizzly at first tomorrow. It does turn dry, but the sky remains quite grey, although we do rise to 17, Mitch.
And you'll be keeping an eye on the forecast for Perth on Saturday.
Yes, as I said, Perth there. On Saturday, it does look dry. The showers coming Sunday. Let's hope they hold off.
Yes, that would be good. Thank you very much, Jane. Now, here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, Mitch. At last, the great escape, the countdown to Christmas travel, getting it right when you book overseas.
We've done the homework for takeoff, the risks, the restrictions, and ensuring Melbourne travellers get a refund if they can't. See you in the morning.
And that's the way it is this Tuesday, the 21st of September. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.